everybody, welcome back for another episode here on the SMP. As you saw in the intro, I moved all the horses over there, which is nice. So we can build in this area now. We just need all the stuff that we need to actually build with. And one of those things I want is actually frogs, which is not really a block you build with, but I think will add quite a bit to this build if we can get enough of them. Right now I only have two. And you breed these guys with slime balls, which we don't have. Or actually, we do have a couple, I guess. We have a couple of slime balls in a chest somewhere, I think, but not nearly enough to breed up enough frogs for what we actually need to do. So we're gonna need to set up a slime farm at some point. I think the slime balls, yeah, we only have 13. We need more, right? So we'll need a slime farm. And I think I have pretty much everything I need for a slime farm. We just need a good spot to put it. And I obviously already have an industrial district, so somewhere close to that will probably be a pretty good idea. So let's go ahead and go over there and we'll kind of try and find a spot. Well, here is the industrial district, and you can see there's plenty of space, mostly over here, to build pretty much any kind of mob farm we would want to build. The problem is the only kind of farm that would work for slimes in this area is one of those like oozing potion based ones with allays and silverfish and stuff. I don't have the stuff for one of those. So we'll need either a chunk based slime farm or a swamp based slime farm. So we either need a swamp or a chunk, and I'd rather do a swamp. So it's gonna save me quite a bit of time doing a swamp based slime farm, and they're pretty good, especially in modern versions. With the change in monster spawning light levels and stuff. So right here in this ocean area, I think will be a pretty good spot for a slime farm. We have some stuff in these barrels already, just stone for now. We'll need quite a bit of other stuff, so I'll be moving back and forth with different items and things, but we should be able to pretty much just go ahead and start doing a time lapse for this slime farm. Slime farms. Slime farms in swamps used to be really, really bad. But 1.17 changed that, or 1.18, I don't really remember when that change took place. That changed how mobs kind of like spawned and stuff. But anyways, this design was by Ilmingo. He made this in response to Mumbo Jumbo making a really bad swamp-based slime farm, and he kind of figured out that brown mushrooms were kind of like this perfect block that prevented most hostile mobs from spawning, but allowed slimes to kind of spawn inside the slime farm, which is exactly what you need in a swamp-based slime farm. So we have slime balls now. I think we just need to head back over to the frogs and get started doing stuff. So this whole area over here, like I said last week, is something that I want to terraform and turn it into a nice swampy kind of area, which is why we're gonna need a bunch of frogs. We'll probably have them dotted around this whole place, providing ambient noises and just kind of looking cool and stuff. So we'll need quite a few frogs. So let's just go ahead and start breeding these guys up and maybe start doing some of the grass and stuff that we need to do in this area while we wait on these guys. Well, we have more than enough frogs. More frogs that I know what to do with. We only had a few leads, so a lot of these guys are just free range. You can see they're all over the place. There actually are some in Jim's mob farm down there. There's some in the nether. There's some out in the ocean and on those plains over there. They're everywhere. I don't know how they got so far so fast, but they're everywhere now. Which means that we have plenty. I think we have plenty. But to build with these guys, how I want to do it is with leads, like fence posts under the ground, them tied to the lead so they can't go too far. They're kind of in a certain local area in this build. So I guess what we need to do is get more leads, and to get more leads, we need more string. To get more string, we need to kill spiders, or have a mob farm that kills spiders. I don't really want to build a mob farm today, so I think instead we'll just leave these guys here and keep building and doing some of the stuff around here. I feel like that's something that I just want to do a bit more. You can see while we were waiting for the frogs to breed up, we kind of terraformed quite a bit. We obviously turned all this into grass, we added the rivers in, but we also added a lot of dirt. All this was mixed with sand and gravel and clay, and now it's all just dirt under the water here. Not the whole ocean, of course, but there's a pretty decent amount, and then I kind of tried to mix in some stuff in certain places to make it look a little less obvious. There's still some hard lines here and there, but in other places it's mixed in pretty well to where you can't really tell where the line is as much of where I stopped and where I started. Of course, the big difference is that it's all dirt and it's not all dirt on the other side, so you can still kind of tell where I stopped, but I think we're pretty much ready to keep going here. I want to turn most of this dirt into mud, which is pretty easy. You just get a bottle and right click. So we'll be doing that. That'll take a little bit of time, and we'll also be maybe terraforming a little bit more of this grassy area. We won't be adding trees, I don't think, right now, but we'll be doing other stuff. So let's go ahead and get started on some of this stuff. Well, I'm up here in this tree because it actually gives a pretty interesting view of the mud that I just placed. You can see that there's kind of a transition there I tried to do, but there's not really like good colors to blend whenever you're just messing with dirt. I don't really want to bring other blocks in, so it's just mud for the most part out here. This is all going to be kind of like covered in lily pads and mangrove roots and stuff, so we're not going to really see much of this, unfortunately, but I do really like that it's finished and looks nice like this. We do need to do a couple other things to this grass, of course. I have some stuff in my mule. I won't go down there right now, but there's mud and coarse dirt that I want to kind of add to the actual shoreline. That way the grass looks, muddy and wet and everything. Um, and then I think we'll move on to something else, but I want to get that done real quick. I don't think it'll take too long to just, around the edges mostly, mix in some mud and coarse dirt, kind of add another transition to the grass and stuff over here. So let's go ahead and do that. Well, we're definitely far from being completely finished, but I figured this would be a pretty good place to stop for today with all the mud stuff. I do want to add even more texturing in here, I think like transitioning into coarse dirt and then into grass and maybe a few blocks in between if I got them would be cool to add into this area, but it's just something I don't really have time for because I decided I actually do want to make the mob farm for more string and stuff in the industrial district, so we'll be going over there pretty soon. But I wanted to kind of just look at all the kind of river deltas with all the mud and stuff, which I think is really cool. I've noticed something, and that's that whenever you're walking like next to water on mud, you get slowed down because of the water. Um, so even though like mud doesn't slow you down technically, it like feels like it does, which is a thing that's interesting. But anyway, yeah, I think, well, the sun's pretty much setting, so let's go ahead and go over to the industrial district and maybe start on a mob farm. Well, here we are. I think a good place for this mob farm is going to be above these barrels, kind of somewhere around here. I'm not too worried about kind of weird spawnage rules with like how high up in the world it should be or can be or whatever. I'm not concerned. We'll probably have another pillar of scaffolding going up once we have more string, of course, to kind of AFK above the mob farm if we need to. So spawn rates like kind of don't really matter too much, honestly, to me. So let's go ahead and get started on this. I should have pretty much everything I need. I already got some slabs and magma blocks in my inventory. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get started. it's all finished. Even the trapdoors are all in place. That took a really long time. Why are trapdoors so expensive? Like, you get 2 trapdoors for 6 planks. That's crazy, right? Like, I had to wait for this bamboo to grow for a while until I had enough wood to make all those trapdoors. So, like, in the time lapse, all the trapdoors aren't in place, but they are now. It took a while. Anyway, this design has been around forever. It's kind of just the default mob farm design. It was made by Nimbum. He made this a while ago, and pretty much everybody uses it now because it's just really, really efficient. Like, there's not much more you can change here to make it too much better. There are a few things I've seen, like people kind of changing the shape of the spawning platforms. That way they get a few more spawns per like layer, and then changing the clock that's up here so that it's a little bit more efficient as well. But I just really don't think that stuff is too necessary. Anyways, we got string now. A lot of string actually. Plenty of string for my purposes. So now we need to probably tie up some of those frogs that have been running around the server. Um, but I think this is actually a pretty good place to end this episode. So thank you guys all for watching. God bless.